can't distribute it. Oh, the law is called one-party consent.
Hello everybody, my name's Liam. I'm going to be running this lovely Q&A session for Scenario World. Thanks everybody for showing up. We've got a big turnout. Oh boy. You can't see the turnout online, so no one can doubt us. But it is good though, because I think you got to start small. You got to build a community somehow, right? And you don't do it by not doing anything. So this is a good first step, and I'm glad that everyone's here. Also joining me on the call is Brooke. You can hear Brooke's voice.
Hello.
Sweet. All right, Brooke, you're in from the cold. Are you ready to do this presentation?
Sure.
Okay, so let's get into it. Next button. Okay, so who are we? I'm Liam. Brooke is Brooke. I'll introduce myself a little bit first because I'm actually on camera. We'll get the simulcast thing working next time, so you'll actually be able to see Brooke in the flesh. But for now, I'll just be the moving image on screen. So I'm Liam. What do? I do the producer thing, which is when you don't have any actual applicable skills, but you make people who do have applicable skills do things. So that's pretty good. I get us into trouble, and then Brooke gets us out of trouble. I've recently taken up programming, and I'm working behind the scenes for Scenario World doing some of that stuff. I'm very much Brooke's junior, but contributing more and more all the time. And I've had a very frustrating time at computer school. I'm pleased to announce, even though I've been doing well there, and I'm so excited to never go back. And I'm also a musician. All the music that's been written and performed by for Scenario World and our various projects was done by me. So that's why I'm here. And noticing now that some of these sentences have periods and others don't, but that's fine. What about you, Brooke?
What do I do?
Yeah, it says here that you're the heart and soul of Scenario World, which means that you're a deadbeat lefty.
Basically, I've been kind of working on any of the writing for the game, the overall design of them, and a lot of the programming implementation. Usually I was the one sort of coming up with the direction for the projects, though for the last project that we did for Wordplay, the OverTaxed, that was actually Liam's pitch and development, and all the outlining and character ideas came from Liam. I mean, kind of collaboration, but I'd say mostly from Liam.
I'm so sorry. So I apologize.
And I'm trying to learn how to, have both of us involved more in coming up with what the projects are. It's supposed to be just disappearing for a month and having an emotional crisis and then coming back with an idea.
Yeah. Why not?
And I was in the games industry as a programmer and still am. And that brings me to where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of who we are. So what have we done to date? Some of these things that are here kind of predate me, so I'm going to let Brooke take the wheel. What's We're All Gonna Die, Brooke?
That was the first game for a game chat I made with my friends John Semple and Ryan Tan, where we tried to make a game where you were stuck in a time loop where every 60 seconds the spaceship you're on explodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to figure out how to get out, which is pretty fun. That we released on itch. Obviously, since time loop games become very popular, I like to think we are sort of the progenitor of the genre.
Yeah, this will be the game that we'll point to when people remark that our 10th game was our come out of nowhere game. It's always is the case, right? Like, oh man, the studio you've never heard of, their first game is so good, but it really, it's their 10th, their 15th game. They're just games 1 through 10 were things you would never even heard of. And this is ours. We're All Gonna Die. So then we did Grow Fast.
That was the Twine game that I started working on while I was still in university, um, where I wanted to see if I could write like a novella length interactive story uh, about feeling like you can't change anything. Um, and I did it.
Yeah.
Leah made all the music for it, and it exists. I'm not sure what else to say about it.
It ended up being
Um,
more than novella length, though. I think
yeah, I guess it's like 80,000 words.
was
So that's some
enough.
of that. It's hard to tell what the length of like an individual thing is, but
No.
yeah, that was my first experiment with making a long game that had like choices in it where it affected things later, and designing all that out and making really complicated flowcharts.
Yeah. So then moving on, we had our I would say our first shiny release. It's You Breakup Story.
Yeah, that was the you have to break up with your shitty boyfriend over the phone in an hour or less game. Though I think you could technically let the game run for like 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That was an experiment to try to see. I was basically chatting with my friends about uh, shitty people in our lives, and we kind of thought the inner psychology of some of these shitty people was fascinating in some way, and we wanted to try to explore that by making a game where you have to talk to someone for half an hour, and it was kind of an experiment to see if uh, you could make something that is ostensibly very easy because you can win the game in 5 seconds by just hanging up immediately and then hitting the block button. Um, wanted to see if we could make something where the sense of guilt the other character evokes in you by trying to manipulate you basically makes you play longer than theoretically you would need to quote unquote win the game.
Yeah.
Um,
One
yeah,
thing
and
that I'll always be proud of for this game is that we actually got a little bit of we got a write up in the journal materials for the feminist classroom from the Texas State Women's University, talking about the game's use as a educational aid in the feminist classroom for helping people develop an experience, some empathy for what it's like to be in one of these relationships. And to me, that's always, I think that's what'll stick with me.
yeah, it was kind of interesting because they just kind of emailed me out of nowhere and they're like, "Hey, can you use some pictures from your game?" Um,
Why?
that was yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah. So then we move on to Sense of Harmony.
Uh, yeah, so this is the entry we made for the 2020 Interactive Fiction Competition that got 10th place.
Oh, baby. Number 10.
Basically, or as I've been saying, it got in the top 10.
Because it could be anything. There's lots of numbers between 1 and 10, and it's just one of them.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this started out as I started working part time instead of full time as a programmer and wanted to try to work on my own games more. And I spent a lot of time dicking around Unreal, trying to make all kinds of aborted projects that kept being too big to actually develop with the resources we had, which is me and Liam. Um, but through the course of that, kind of came up with this character of someone who uh, was hypersensitive to other people's feelings through cybernetics. Uh, so kind of like, yeah, kind of like in the newer Deus Ex games where you can read people's pheromones or whatever, except trying to do more with that than what that game did, and dig into more about what it would feel like to actually have such power. Um, so I kind of dropped out of doing Unreal because it was just too much, and we wanted to try to make a text game for the Toronto Game Jam
Yeah.
in 2020.
Yep.
And so after a few iterations, we kind of came up with this interface that we made for that. That was just a text game with light images uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of cool colors. Yeah.
Yeah. It started off as a command line application in C++ that just used end curses, like the kind of thing that original Rogue display was powered by. And then we migrated here.
Yeah, well, yeah. Originally, the goal was to make something that could run on it, like DOS, basically, if you wanted it to. But in the end, we decided something that was more accessible than something you had to figure out how to run your command line for would
have
be more
a chance
viable.
of success.
Yeah.
Any chance at all. And then after that, we did Overtaxed slash somewhat simultaneously.
Yeah, we submitted a pitch for Liam's idea to make a game about a mechanic who couldn't read, who has to do his taxes, to the Wordplay Festival. Basically, they said they'd give you a small amount of funding if they chose your game pitch. So they selected the pitch. We got the email literally the day after I submitted the Sense of Harmony game to the IF comp, and then I learned that I had to make a game in 2 months with Liam, which I'd never done systematically before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that I learned a lot about scheduling
Just getting
and
stuff
what you're
done.
supposed to do first and what you're not supposed to do last.
Yeah, it
I
was a
did not
good.
learn that early in the project.
It was a good time had all around because I was in school full time at the aforementioned terrible college.
We're not going to say which college it is, though, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, absolutely. It's just yeah. Oh boy. So oh man, but it got done, which sort of leads us to what we're doing right now. What are we doing right now? We're kind of putting more polish on those two games that we made. Well, we learned that we had to make two games back to back. So I dropped the ball, so to speak, on a lot of my end of things just because of dealing with the full-time school thing. So we've got upgrades to the audio engine to make it a little bit more robust and more reusable between our projects. For Overtaxed, the music that you hear in the game when you play it is sort of like a dinky MIDI performance of what will eventually be performed by real humans playing in a piano trio. It's originally thought of as being like an ode to Vince Guaraldi's Charlie Brown's Xmas or Christmas special, the CBS thing. Sure, you've all heard like Linus and Lucy or Christmas Time is Here. Another really popular tune from that. And so all the music for that one is written. I'm just learning how to do it, and it's just destroying my hands as I try to play all this stuff on the bass and the piano. And then Sense of Harmony, just composing the rest of the music, getting it finished, getting it implemented. Pretty close to that right now. I keep on not writing the right song for this one more moment that I need to write music for, so that's good because we have a bunch of songs for the next Elizabeth Bolden adventure, but I'm just not quite hitting the tone yet. And then beyond that, Brooke is working on the game engine that's powering these projects and trying to make it a little bit more usable and making it work on mobile because we're trying to enter into that market there. And the other big thing that we're doing is community building, which is an event like this. These things do take time. They're worth doing. But yeah, I think it only makes sense for like interactive fiction, like heavily narrative-based entertainment to try to develop like a rich relationship with the player base. You know, it's not just like a first-person shooter and there's people arguing about whether or not the grenades should blow up bigger or whatnot, right? If we're telling like choose your own adventure stories, I think it makes more sense for the audience to be involved. Do you feel that way, Brooke?
Yeah. I think that, well, I mean, I think that I want to be able to get more feedback from people. So audience involvement is very good for that. I think a lot of the feedback for the Overtaxed game that I got through here was really vital. So
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So what are we doing like next? Because those next things were things that we were already supposed to have been done by now. So Brooke, can you tell us a little bit about the next chapter in Elizabeth Bolden's story? Maybe give people a bit of a sneak peek.
yeah, so basically I am currently outlining the whole story because one thing I am trying to work on in my own skill development is planning out an entire story in advance before even starting writing it so that we can schedule everything out properly. So I've been working on that. The goal is to create a self-contained individual kind of mystery story featuring the characters introduced in Sense of Harmony. The basic premise going so far is that Elizabeth will be invited to a funeral by one of her clients, which she does not want to go to because that is a kind of outrageous request. But when she learns that more might be going on at this funeral than meets the eye from a friend of hers. She decides to investigate and figure out what's going on, and is subjected to all the discomfort therein.
So is it going to have a similar kind of gameplay that we're used to from Elizabeth Bolden stories, or is this one more of like a gachapon match 4 game?
Well, that will be obviously the optional side content. Yeah, basically, I want to build on the cybernetic gameplay that I did for the first one, make it more compatible, find a way to get to work on mobile, because that's a big problem right now with the layout, is how to actually make that not cumbersome on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and basically just build in a bit more exploration features, but broadly speaking, a similar choose your own adventure plus cybernetic analysis kind of gameplay.
Sounds exciting. Looking forward to it. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of audience participation for those of you playing along at home. This is your time to shine. Okay, so I have a few prompts here that I need you to respond to. You can do it in the chat. It would be great. So who do you think would win in a fight? A bat or a bat? So I'm going to post this here in the chat for you.
Okay.
And then if you could respond with either I think it's the flag of Bhutan. I'm looking for just the flying mammal. So if you could pick a bat or a bat, who do you think would win? I know my vote's on. Oh, I voted twice. Oh, somebody else already got. Oh, sorry, someone beat me to bat. I see. Okay, so I can take my vote for the for baseball bat away. Alrighty, it's good. Brooke, thoughts on bat v bat?
Well, one of these says it's a piece of French bread, but I'm supposed to interpret that as a bat.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Maybe there is a baseball bat sticker or whatever emoji. There's a baseball.
Okay, I voted.
Oh, there's cricket bat. Should we use cricket bat? Nah, whatever. Okay. What are the conditions for winning? That's a good question. How do you decide? How would you declare the victor in this bout, Brooke? How do you know when someone's won?
Well, I think that I guess not dying would be part of it.
Can a baseball bat die, though?
It can cease to be recognized as a baseball bat.
Okay, so this is sort of the baseball bat of Theseus sort of situation.
Yes. I think if we can delve into some Hegelian philosophy a bit here,
Okay.
then I think if the bat ceases to be recognized as a bat by other people, it would lose its sense of self.
Okay, so this is a formalist interpretation of bathood. That's good. Okay, well, I'll let people weigh that in their minds in order to figure out their votes. If you deliberate and just change your mind, you're allowed to change your votes. Okay, so the next question, similar scenario, but this time it's the flying mammal bat and like a battery bat. Who do you think would win in a fight? This, by the way, this information is going to be used to inform design choices in the next game. So these matter, folks. Don't take this lightly. Brooke, what do you think?
Well, batteries have charge. Bats can charge.
Yeah.
Bats have personally. I think I'm going to say bats still because I've been attacked by bats 3 times in my own house. In the last 5 years.
Like a sneak attack.
I think the damage that have done to me psychologically by bats is much greater than batteries so far. So
right.
If I had to pick a side, I think it would be bats.
Yeah, I think that like in my calculation of this bout, that the flying bat, probably the teeth aren't strong enough to really puncture the battery to like release the parts of the battery that are dangerous to it, but like a bat could definitely like just dump a battery in a river, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm going with bat on that one too. Okay, so remember these details will be worked into the next game, so this is important. Okay, so who's gonna win in this fight? Who do you think? A baseball bat or evil Sir Sanford Fleming, the father of non-standard time?
Can you give us some background on this man?
Okay, so
Ooh,
for
I
any,
assume this is original depiction.
yeah, this is a artistic rendering. I don't think there's any photos of evil Sir Sanford Fleming. So for those of you who don't know, Sir Sanford Fleming created standardized time, right? So back in the day, before we had standard time, every city, village, and town would set their clocks according to when the sun rose and set, right? Seems to make sense. You know, what time is it? Look up. Jeez, don't be such a dummy. But when trains came on the scene, they moved faster than the sun can, right? So in order to make schedules work, you have to agree on what time it is. Wow. So Sir Sanford Fleming is the person who pioneered that system. So okay, that's not to be confused with evil Sir Sanford Fleming. He's the Bizarro World rendition of Sir Sanford Fleming, and he's the inventor of non-standard time. Does that clarify anything?
Uh, and sorry, is his name also in some way Bat, or is he just is just he's just in this case the opponent of the Bat?
I don't follow your line of questioning here.
Like all the other things, they were in some ways their nickname was Bat. Is his nickname Bat?
Uh, no,
Okay,
I
never
don't.
mind then. Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
it's kind of weird, but fine.
okay, I'll come up with my vote here.
Okay. All right. Is that clear to everybody in the chat? So we
I think it's pretty definitive in the chat. I think everyone understands. Well, I was asking questions, people were voting.
yeah. All right. That's good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for participating in the audience participation section of this presentation. We'll use this information. We'll collate your answers and figure out what that means for the development of our next game. Thank you very much. Okay. So here's the Q&A portion. Really, what we're here. The structure of these will be pretty much the same going forward. The presentation portion will be a little shorter. I just figured it was good to lay out some groundwork, just in case people are unfamiliar. Some folks here have known me and Brooke for a really long time. Some of us have only known one or the other. Now everybody knows who we are. All right. So our first gumshoe tier patron, it's a Quartz Art. How do you say that?
It's Quasar.
It's Quasart. What's Quasart?
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a Q&A for Grant.
Yeah, the reverse Q&A. The tables have turned. Okay, so it's Quasart. It's Quasi Art. I don't know. There's lots of ways you could say that. Where does Scenario World plan to publish, i.e., Steam, etc.? Not heard of that platform. Has there been any other thought on any other places you feel might be better to target your demographic? So where do we plan on publishing, Brooke?
The plan is to do publishing simultaneously on mobile, on like the App Store and the iOS Store, and then also on Steam/itch for PC.
Yeah.
Demographics, I'm not sure. I haven't done enough demographics. I haven't done enough research on like interactive fiction being sold on PC. I'm pretty sure the consensus is it's worse. There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of like companies. Like obviously, there's a lot of like people working in their spare time, just like publishing free interactive fiction all over the place. But in terms of companies that actually produce like revenue, like all of the interactive fiction stuff is on mobile, like Choice of Games, Tales Fiction, and there's some other ones that are starting up that are all just like play stories on your phone. And then I think there's the infamous episodes people who make those like those, I don't even know what you want to call them, young adult
Episodes?
drama games. Yeah, they're like young adult drama games. So I think mobile will be the best place. I was doing some research on like where the money is in terms of mobile games. A lot of people were talking about how it seems like there's more revenue on iOS than Android. I don't know why that is. Some people complain that everyone on Android just pirates everything.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's true or just fewer Android users pay for. This is specifically for games you pay up front, not freemium or ad-based games, but games up front. The stuff I was seeing was mainly iOS. Seems to be more profitable. I don't know. So that's what we figured out so far. But the plan is to do both because we're doing web games basically. So it's
If
just a
it,
matter of making a new layout.
yeah, if it runs in a browser, it should
It'll
run.
run on every browser.
Yeah. So yeah. So in short, I think we're talking about Steam, we're talking about Itch, and we're talking about trying to target the mobile Play stores like Apple and Google. Yeah. You've never played where Diggle says, I've never played a game on Android. Not technically a question, but I'll take that up. Please answer in the form of a question, sir. Uh, that looks like a Sir drill. So that's a mole, right? Am I looking at a picture of a mole?
I think it's a bird.
Is that a bird? Is everybody a bird here? Half of people, everybody here seems to be some sort of bird. Anyways, yeah, I'm not a mobile gamer myself. So I don't really understand that market too well. But we're going to hire the most overpaid consulting firm possible to answer that question for us. There you go. He adds the question mark to the. Thank you. What is? I have never played a game on Android. I saw a funny clip reel the other day of people playing Jeopardy and betting big money on like the final Jeopardy, but not putting a question mark at the end of their answer, and then just Trebek just like he doesn't even get mad at them. He just looks sorry. All right. Do any games in particular stand out as inspiration or influence on design choices?
I mean, obviously, for Sense of Harmony, Disco Elysium, because you had the ability for characters. You had like, I don't know who's played Disco Elysium, but it's an RPG where you have like a fractured psyche, where all your you have like 30 skills, and they all talk to you as voices in your head, trying to tell you what to do. Many times to humorous effect. So I was kind of building off of that with Sense of Harmony, with the different like pieces of like cybernetic sensitivity kind of giving you information, except I was doing less of an ironic bent than Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is supposed to kind of feel ridiculous a bit, despite having a lot of very serious themes. The character is coping with how shitty the world is by just like kind of acting as if he's in a video game. I want to do something a bit more sincere. Almost sounds negative toward Disco Elysium, which I don't think it is, but less humorous and ridiculous, and a bit more grounded.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like what you're saying is Disco Elysium is a little bit meta. It's playing with the fourth wall and talking about it being a game, where Sense of Harmony and the Tales of Elizabeth Bolden are a little bit more grounded in their own fictional world.
Yeah, like there's part of Disco Elysium where someone asks you why you're always so obsessed with lists, and then you get a list of answers you can give, and one of them is actually they're not lists; they're more like trees,
right?
Branching trees.
Yeah, totally. Where Diggle asks, I have played Disco Elysium. For me, that's what is no. I've heard great things though.
It definitely deserves all the praise it's gotten. I don't know if it got nominated for a BAFTA or won a BAFTA. I mean, I guess it won a BAFTA. It also got nominated for one.
Nice.
I think it won one though.
Did you go Hobo Cop?
No, I went Sorry Cop. For context, in the game, the game keeps track of your personality, and then starts to psychoanalyze you.
Okay.
So you can, and one of the things you can get is different kinds of copo types. So I was Sorry Cop, which means you just keep apologizing to everyone for how bad you are.
That's good. And if I'm going to put my own sort of like musical spin on this question, I recently played the game Secret of Mana. And while it's a JRPG, and for a lot of points, the soundtrack does just like do the JRPG song that you would expect to hear. In a lot of ways, the musical selections are pretty outlandish and unexpected, and like particular and esoteric in a way that really opened up my eyes to some of the possibilities of expanding like the creative space. that you can do in underscoring, and that's kind of inspired me to try to broaden my sense of what's possible in terms of how I can underscore a scene. Underscoring, for those of you who don't know, is when music plays beneath the action, and it can be helpful for giving the viewer some sort of like emotional context for understanding the scene, but rather than just making the sad scenes have sad songs, you can pair it differently and create some sort of commentary or observation. So I thought, I was impressed and inspired by Secret of Man in that way. All right, and our last, it Esqua Azarte asks is best, most memorable, frustrating, interesting anecdote working on the project so far. Technically not a question.
Most interesting, memorable, or frustrating anecdote.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. I mean,
Yeah.
I already said that finding out that we had to make a game in 2 months.
For the record,
right after finishing everything. Yeah.
The And-I Society had put together this request for proposals, and I said, you know what, let's just do this, thinking we're gonna lose. They're gonna turn us down. But I know some people who are in the Hand-I Society, and there's a high likelihood that after we hand in this pitch, I'll be able to get us some good feedback. Because we've done the Canadian Media Fund thing, we've looked at pitching for other stuff, and it's always just good to work on your skills and figure out how you're doing. But then we won, and I was in school full time. So, yeah, for me, the best thing so far, like the best experience, I think has been getting the top 10 placement for Sense of Harmony in the fiction competition, the interactive fiction competition. I feel like it's a really good outcome for where we are right now. We're going to get first next year. That's the goal. But it feels validating, if that's the right word. Most memorable, I guess that's whatever I think of first. I think that's, for me, that's just being angry at Trash College for giving me all this stupid make work to do when I would have much rather been working on the game. I think that's also frustrating. So we'll do that. But maybe the most interesting anecdote, for me, it's probably Overtaxed again. It's really strange seeing something like, I would say that I broke the story, if that makes sense. Or I wrote the outline for the story, is I guess the term. And it's the first time I've ever done something like that. So it was very interesting and strange. Having written the outline, rough briefs on the setting, rough briefs on the character, sort of an arc of how I thought that the narrative would play out and what some of the crucial scenes could be. And then handing that off to Brooke and seeing what he wrote and came up with based on it. It's very strange because I've never had that experience before. And it's sort of one that I had quite accidentally because I never thought that we would actually make this game. So that was really interesting for me.
I guess the flip side of that is when I actually had to implement the game outline. Let me see it right here. Because one of the parts of that game is that you have to fill out tax forms with your uncle. And the outline included descriptions of what you had to overcome in each section. And one of the things on the outline for a gameplay section just says, you unlock the super sword that kills the dragon, and now the boss is a dragon, so you win.
Did I write that?
That's yeah. Well, that's what I got from Liam as to what the gameplay section of one of the ending scenes was. So I guess funny anecdotes, figuring out what to do with parts of this outline that were
half-baked.
Just because we didn't fully know what the tax forms would actually mean, but I tried.
Yeah, I think you did good. It was definitely interesting, accidentally forming the basic gameplay for a game around something that it turns out almost universally causes people an extreme amount of anxiety.
Yeah, people don't like taxes.
It was interesting going
Um,
through playtesting and realizing that we needed to give people explicit permission to do poorly on the taxes in order to have fun.
yeah, I mean that was the tricky part because yeah, some people were like they got too invested in I need to do the taxes correctly, and admittedly at that point the game was balanced too difficultly,
Yeah.
um, and maybe it wasn't clear enough that even if you get them wrong, it doesn't. It's kind of part of the game in the sense that it's part of the tension of not being able to do these things. I guess that's I don't know. That's a game design uh, kind of quandary. Is like if you want to create a player experience that is meant to be frustrating or annoying, how does you do that in such a way that doesn't translate into you just finding the game annoying and then you just don't want to play it?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly a lot of combat games don't have that problem where, like, I mean, the overused example of Dark Souls being difficult, but I
Hmm.
guess the other side of that is that it's also rewarding when you succeed.
Yeah. You get
Um,
that curve built in. Cool.
yeah.
Do we have any questions from the chat? No. Where did we meet? I meet at the deli. Where do you meet, Brooke?
Uh,
Uh,
I'm a vegetarian, so I guess nowhere. I did try vegetarian chicken fingers yesterday.
well, it's not where do you meet. It's where did you. So presumably at one point in time you meet.
Oh, I see. Uh, I've never been to a deli.
Yeah.
I just got meat from the grocery store where you know, they come in the pre-wrapped bags and they're just produced from I don't know, I guess artificers to sort of cause them to come into existence. I never really thought about
Some sort of device that extrudes hamburger.
it.
Follow up question: where did we meet each other? So we were introduced by a friend that we had in common. Basically, I was in music school, just trying to write for everything and anything that I could. And my friend said, "Hey, I have a buddy who's writing a game. Um, uh, maybe you should get in touch and offer your services." And so I did. And I think it was many months before we actually met in person. Um, at the time, I was living in Toronto, still am, and at the time you were living in Waterloo, still aren't. Um,
Yeah, well, I think the other side of that was that I met someone, chatted about them that was working on a game, and then I got a message from a stranger uh, saying, "Hello, uh, I want to make music for your game."
yeah, it sounds
Um,
like something I would do.
and I didn't know who they were or what was going on. Uh, and You're incredibly persistent,
Yeah,
and my meek and accommodating nature led me to kind of go along with it. And then,
you've regretted it ever
this is,
since.
yes, but I mean, I was trying to find music for the game actually already, and the other person, I was looking at one other person, and then I didn't really know how to compare either of you, and you both sent me examples of songs you'd made. So I gave both samples to someone uh, who knew more about music, and they said that you knew more about what you were doing.
That's something. Hey, what a world. Okay.
Which I think was true. And here we are. And we've done a lot of cool things since. And yeah,
But we're not going to do any more. Those days
no,
are
we're
over.
done. Yeah.
We're only just going to make tax simulators from now on. Oh boy. Okay. Do you have any questions for me, Brooke? There's what's holding us back? The chat wants to know. Todd
Holding you
Chapman.
back from making more, better, cooler things? That's a good question. That's my bird. I would say what's holding us back? Um, for me, the thing that I want to figure out how to do is how to like come up with an entire plan for a game from the start. Be like, here's the pitch, run the pitch past people, to get the pitch into good shape. It's good. Okay, now design the whole game. Because usually my strategy is like, I have a semblance of a game I want to make, start fiddling around with it and fidgeting and making things, and that's not bad. And in fact, very useful for certain kinds of things. But I think in terms of getting reliable output that could actually pay itself back regularly. It's all about just planning it all in advance and not having to deal with. I think every project so far has always had like a midlife crisis
Mm-hmm.
partway through its development. I think that's kind of endemic to any creative endeavor, so that's always going to happen. But I think it can happen in a more controlled environment where I can anticipate problems with the game up front. Like,
Yeah.
um, so developing, once I have that skill down, which is what the big thing that I'm working on for this next project is actually doing that, and just seeing how it goes. I think if I can master that, then uh, I will be in a much, much better place.
Yeah, I think there's also a big difference between the inevitable point of crisis in a creative endeavor and the point of crisis that you artificially created for yourself through a lack of planning, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. For me, what I would say, like just speaking from my own personal perspective, I've transitioned from being a professional musician to being a programmer in the midst of a crazy year where it's now illegal to be a performing musician, and just all of the nonsense that's been going on through before me, just trying to make ends meet, holding down gigs, holding down part-time work, to switching to being a programmer and having the all the schoolwork on my belt and doing my best to get prepared to be employable in that field has basically just meant that I don't have as much time as I would like to invest, and I find myself constantly developing new skill sets rather than polishing the ones that are really going to help propel us to the next year. So I'm looking forward to I'm starting my new position as a programmer in the new year, and it should allow me more free time than working as a gigging musician did. So I'm, fingers crossed. We don't know for sure, but I'm hoping that there'll be a bit of a burst in productivity from my behalf. So yeah, I think that's what's holding me back. Matt, do you have any questions for me, Brooke?
Um,
Hmm.
the Are we gonna have an audience participation segment in every Q&A?
Yeah, there's gonna be something new. It's not gonna be the bat thing again, but there's
But
gonna
maybe later we can bring the bad thing back.
maybe later maybe we can do a best of. We can do a recap, like a clip show, and we can revisit the bats. But yeah. So the format for these Q&As going forward is that there'll be a really short presentation, just sort of catch people up on what we've done since the last one, just in order to keep people in the loop. There'll be a bit of an audience participation thing that'll be equally important to our process as a game developer, as this one was. And then we'll take questions from patrons, and then we'll take questions from the chat. So that's the plan.
All right, that's
All
all
right.
my questions. Any internship opportunities?
I think that we don't have the budget to hire a paid intern, and I think that unpaid internships are immoral.
Yeah,
So
I don't think I feel comfortable taking free labor from people unless you want to help play test and provide feedback.
yeah,
Um,
I think there's lots of opportunities for people to get involved and be and contribute to this project, broadly speaking. But yeah, I think it would be irresponsible at this point to take on that kind of commitment. I don't know that we would be able to serve an intern properly, right?
yeah, I don't think that would be. Um, yeah,
No.
maybe one day
Maybe one
if we
day.
can stably fund our own projects, then maybe things will change.
Yeah. So just as like for comparison, right? Like in order to make enough money to pay one person's salary, we need like 700 patrons. So we're ways off. That's just the nature of it. We need game sales. We need to get out on those shop fronts and move some units. Okay, well, unless there's any last questions coming in, I think this is a good time to wrap. Thanks everybody for participating in the first live Q&A here at Scenario World. I think it was a success. I had a good time. Hopefully you guys learned a few things or two. And the VOD's going to go up, so you can revisit it as many times as you want. Go back to your favorite moment, like the time there was a bat. It was good. All right. Okay, Brooke. Okay, audience. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Happy New Year.